This video is going to cover Chapter 11, Section 2, which is techniques for evaluating limits. So we're getting a little bit further into limits. So here are some approaches to finding a limit. The first, which is what we did in 11.1, that's probably the easiest, is direct substitution, taking the value that is at the bottom and plugging it in. Another way to do it is by graphing it by hand and seeing the behavior of the graph around the x value you're looking towards. Third, using the graphing utility or a chart where we're plugging in values to look at. And then what happens is that sometimes we can't do the direct substitution. So let's say we didn't have a graphing utility and we still had to use it algebraically. If our equation would give us something that's undefined, we can't find it that way. So for example, if I had a function that was like x squared minus 25 over x plus 5. And I wanted to know the limit of that as x approaches negative 5. Well, if I take that and I substitute it directly to the bottom, for example, I end up with a 0 on the bottom, and that 0 makes my function undefined. And so I can't use direct substitution in that situation. So then what we have to do is now check to see if our function can be simplified. And one of the ways it can be simplified is by factoring. So if I take this function and I factor the numerator x plus 5 and x minus 5 over x plus 5, and I cancel out those x plus 5s, now I can take that negative 5 and I can plug it into the numerator. Negative 5 minus 5 would be negative 10. So the limit of the graph at x equals negative 5, or the limit as it's approaching negative 5 would be negative 10. So ideally, we do direct substitution. That's the easiest. But if you cannot do direct substitution because it would make your function undefined, then we're going to try to divide out common factors like we just did, cancel out things in the top and the bottom. We're also going to get functions that have square roots that we have to rationalize. And we're also going to get fractions that are complex that you'll see that we need to we also need to simplify getting rid of the secondary denominators. So we're going to go through an example of about each of these. So we start with example 1, and it simply says find the limit. So I'll save you the trouble of checking this, but if I had just plugged this in, I would get 9 minus 6 minus 3, and I end up with 0 in the denominator. So I cannot use direct substitution. So instead, I'm going to factor both the numerator and the denominator. So we go back to our factoring skills. For the numerator, we're looking for factors of positive 3 that sum to negative 4. So negative 1 and negative 3. And in the denominator, we're looking for factors of negative 3 that sum to negative 2. So negative 3 and positive 1. Then we want to simplify. So we can cancel in both the numerator and the denominator the x minus 3's, making this now x minus 1 over x plus 2. Now, if we think about like what this looks like on a graph, that canceled out function or that canceled out factor is actually a hole, but it doesn't mean there's not a limit at that hole because it's approaching the same value from both sides. So now we take and we plug our 3 in after we simplified. So 3 minus 1, 3 plus 1 would be 2 over 4, and that's a half. So the limit as this graph approaches 3 would be 1/2. Specifically with this graph, there would be a hole there. So we would say the limit as it approaches that hole where x is 3, my y values are going to be approaching 1/2. At the top of this question here, and this is not on your slides, but in the homework, you're going to get questions that basically say like find the limit, all this stuff, and it's got multiple parts. And then the very bottom question on that one part, or the very bottom part on that question says this. Identify another function that agrees with the given function at all but one point. So it is a weird way of basically saying find the simplified function. So if it was for this question, my simplified function is after we cross out the factor in the numerator and the denominator. And why is this it agrees with it except for 1 point? Because this one would not have a hole. So it agrees with it for all except for that 1 point. All right, example 2, again, finding the limit. And again, I'll save you the trouble. If I plug in that negative 3, I'm going to get a 0 on the bottom. So instead, we're going to factor top and bottom. Now, there are 4 terms in each. So if you remember, we're going to factor it by grouping. In my numerator, I'm going to group together the first 2 and the last 2 terms. From the first two terms, I can take out an x squared, and I get x plus 3. And then from the second two terms, I can take out a negative 9, and I get x plus 3. So now the x plus 3 is my common factor. That's going to come out front, and I get x squared minus 9. And that can get factored again into, because it's difference of two squares, x plus 3 and x minus 3. So that's the entire factored form of the numerator. Denominator, same thing. I'm going to factor by grouping here. I could take out an x squared, and I get x plus 1. I could take out a negative 9, and I get x plus 1. And I get x plus 1 times x squared minus 9, or x plus 1 times x plus 3 times x minus 3. And that whole thing is my denominator. And then I want to simplify. So I can cancel out the x plus 3's, and I can cancel out the x minus 3's. And what's left is x plus 3 over x plus 1. And now I plug in my negative 3 to both. So I get negative 3 plus 3 and negative 3 plus 1, which is 0 over negative 2. And it's okay to have 0 on the top. 0 divided by anything is just 0. So the limit as this graph approaches negative 3 is 0. Okay, moving on to example 3. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. In this example, it still says find the limit, but then use a graphing utility to verify your result. So in this example, if I try substitution, direct substitution first, because I would always try that first, I plug in that negative 2, I get 0 in the denominator, and it makes my function undefined. So I can't do direct substitution. So I need to simplify it. The way we simplify with radicals, if you remember from Algebra 2 Honors, is we multiply by the opposite of the expression. So I'm going to take wherever that square root is, in this case it's in the numerator, and I'm going to multiply both the top and the bottom by the opposite of that expression. So like we do with a conjugate with our complex numbers, we take our expression, which is the square root minus something, and I change it to the square root plus that same thing. But I can't just do it to the numerator like we rationalize. We also have to do it to the denominator. So I'm going to multiply both numerator and denominator by the square root of x plus 6 plus 2. So in my numerator, I get the square root of x plus 6 times the square root of x plus 6, and a square root times itself is just what's underneath, which is x plus 6. And then I do square root of x plus 6 times 2, so this is plus 2 times the square root of x plus 6. Negative 2 times the square root of x plus 6 is now minus 2 square root of x plus 6. And negative 2 times positive 2 is negative 4. So the middle terms are going to cancel, which happens every time we multiply something by its opposite. And I get x, positive 6, and negative 4, so x plus 2 in my numerator. Now, instead of foiling out the denominator, hopefully you notice or you'll catch on that this happens when we multiply by the opposites. I've got x plus 2 here, and I'm multiplying it times the square root of x plus 6 plus 2. And what happens is my x plus 2's cancel. And I end up with 1 over the square root of x plus 6 plus 2. And now we can take that negative 2 and we can plug it in. So I end up with 1 over the square root of negative 2 plus 6 plus 2, which is 1 over the square root of 4 plus 2, which is 1 over 2 plus 2, or 1/4, or 0.25. Now we're going to look at this and verify it using a graphing utility. All right, so what I've done is I've taken this initial equation before I simplified it, and I typed it in as my y1, and then I'm going to go to graph. Now I can either hit trace, and I can follow the x values as they get closer to negative 2, or I could just hit negative 2, and it's going to bring me directly to negative 2. Now notice it's undefined, which makes sense, because from the start, it would be undefined. But if I go just to the right of it, notice the y value 0.247, go just to the left of it, 0.25. So it's pretty much just jumping right over 0.25, which would be where that hole is, or where it would be undefined. So now I've screen recorded what this looks like in Desmos so you can get an idea. I type the equation into my y equals, and then when you tap on the screen, you're going to see the coordinate point appear, and you literally just drag it back and forth. So as I drag this closer and closer to -2, you'll see it changes from undefined, and then it goes and varies from coordinate points from like -0.5 something to -0.4 something. So again, confirming what we found by using simplification with the square roots. All right, another one that's kind of complicated. So these are the worst two, like the square roots and the complex fractions, which is what this is. So same set of instructions, find the limit, use the graphing utility to verify your result. So you'll be expected to do this with and without the graphing utility. So this time I've got a complex fraction, meaning a fraction within a fraction. If I try to plug it in doing direct substitution, I end up with something over 0, which makes it undefined, so I can't do it. So instead, what I'm going to do is take this fraction in my numerator, combine it into 1, and then keep change flip it. So I have to find a like denominator. My like denominator would be 5 times x plus 5, or x minus 5, sorry. X minus 5. And I'm going to multiply my first fraction by the 5 and the second fraction by the x minus 5. So I end up with 1 times 5, which is 5. The plus comes from the middle here, plus 1 times x minus 5, which is x minus 5. And then the positive 5 and the negative 5 cancel out, and I end up with x over 5 times x minus 5 in my numerator. And all that goes over x, as in this x. And then I would keep change flip it. So keep the numerator, change division to multiplication, and this x over 1 becomes 1 over x. And now my x's cancel, and I get 1 over 5 times x minus 5. And I can plug in the 0. 1 over 5 times 0 minus 5 is 1 over 5 times -5, which is 1 over -25. So when we go to graph this, it's easier to see the decimal. So 1 divided by 25, just so that we know, is a -0.04. So now I'm going to graph it. All right, so first I plugged my equation in. I used the fraction within the fraction tool to plug it in. And then I went to graph. And it looks weird, but because hopefully we know that's because there's a vertical asymptote happening at where x equals 5, because I have an x minus 5 in the denominator. So now when I go to trace, I can change my x value to 0 if I didn't, you see it there, right? And then I can drag my trace before the 0 and after the 0, and you're going to see my y change from -0.388 to -0.412. So it's jumping over that -0.04, which is consistent with what we found algebraically. Okay, this one simply says use a graphing utility to verify your result. So instead of, we could try to plug it in. When I plug in pi over 2, I actually get my value here because sine is not undefined at pi over 2. So I would get cosine at pi over 2 minus 1 over sine at pi over 2. And we go back to our unit circle. Cosine at pi over 2 is 0. Sine at pi over 2 is 1. This ends up being -1. Now we're going to plug it into the graphing utility and check. Okay, so now we've got our graph. I graphed cosine x minus 1 over sine of x, and I got this, which should look like a tangent function or a cotangent function, which makes sense because it's cosine over sine. But I want to find what's happening at pi over 2. So you can either do the 3.14 divided by 2 to find that decimal, or when I go to trace and it gives me the x value, I could actually type in pi divided by 2. I don't know if you could see that on the screen. And it's going to drag me directly there. And look at the y value. It is -1. Okay, example 6, graph the function, evaluate the limit. So there's also one like this in the homework, and we're going to just use the graphing utility to do this. So graphing utility. Whether that's your handheld or Desmos, that's totally up to you, but we're just going to use that to graph. So I left it so that you could see me type this in, because as a reminder that the absolute value is in the math menu. I go to math and I go over to NUM, and the very first thing there is the absolute value, x minus 1, and I'm going to put that over x, and then I'm going to hit graph. And I want to know what's happening at x. So I'm going to go to, at 0. I'm going to go to trace. It's actually going to bring me right to 0. Notice there's no y there. Before it is 5.60001. Well, after it. And then before it is negative 7.6. So think about what this means as far as what we covered in 11.1. As we get to 0, one of these curves is going to point down and it's unbounded, and the other's going up, which means this is one of those cases where the limit does not exist. So in the homework, just like WebAssign will actually remind you that if the limit does not exist, you write DNE for does not exist. Okay, last question, and it says graph the function to find the limit. Use a graphing utility to verify your result. So this time we've got a piecewise function, and these we've got to know how to do by hand. So first of all, if I try direct substitution, this says what's happening as x is approaching 1. Well, in the top part of my graph, it's telling you what's happening as it's less than 1, but not equal to 1. And on the right-hand side of your graph, it's telling you what's happening where it's greater than 1, but not equal to 1. So we can't just do direct substitution. Instead, we're going to graph this piecewise function. So the first one is a line. It would be y equals negative x plus 4. So I'd start at positive 4. That's my b. And my slope is negative 1. So down 1 and to the right 1, or up 1 and to the left 1. But I only want it for the values that are less than 1. So I'm going to put an open dot here where x is 1. And I'm going to point my graph to the left. I'm going to get rid of the dot inside, so we know that's an open dot because it doesn't include it. The second part of this graph is a quadratic. Y equals, it would be negative x squared plus 4x. So for this one, it's not in standard form. I'm going to plug in some points. I'm going to start by plugging in 1. So negative goes on the front. 1 squared plus 4 times 1 would be negative 1 plus 4, which is 3. So at 1, it's also 3. And then I'm just going to plug in one more so that I can get an idea of what's happening to the right here. Y equals negative 2 squared plus 4 times 2, negative 4 plus 8, which is 4. 1, 2, 2, 4. So this is a parabola. It's got a negative x squared, so it has to come down at some point. It's probably doing something like that. Now, I'm not even really worried about the rest of that shape. All I'm worried about is what's happening at my graph when x is equal to 1. Well, both of these are approaching the same point. So even though they're different graphs on the outside, they're both approaching that same point, and that same point is where y is 3. So the limit of this graph would be 3. Okay, so this time I graphed it using Desmos, because Desmos is a lot easier to do piecewise. So with Desmos, you're going to type in your two equations, and then you're going to use those little brackets to insert the conditional part. So the braces, x minus, or x is less than 1 for the first one, and x is greater than 1 for the second one. And then as you look at the point where they intersect, that y value is undefined, but as I approach it from the right or from the left, I'm getting closer and closer to 3, which confirms what we said, that the limit of the function is 3. All right, that wraps up the notes for today. So please take the time to submit your notes. And you can use the remaining time to either work on your 11.2 homework or work on your project. Have a great day, guys.